Do you need to build some boat stands for your bass boat so you can remove it from the trailer? I'm going to show you one way to do it. Stick around. Hey folks, Keith here, Chicken Thigh Fishing. Welcome aboard. Well, it's fall. There's a Christmas in the air. The leaves are turning. It's time for some projects. One of the first projects I'm doing this year is building some boat stands so I can remove my Tracker Pro Team 175 TXW from the trailer and put it up on stands for some work that I'm going to be doing to it and the trailer over the course of the fall and, well, I guess maybe the spring. So when I started looking at boat stands online, I was a little naive and I found out how expensive they are. They're really expensive. And I gotta believe they're not cheap to ship either. And I couldn't find any used ones on Craigslist that were anywhere within a reasonable distance from me. So I figured, hey, I'm gonna have to build my own. So that's exactly what we're gonna do today. We're gonna do some DIY boat stands for a bass boat so we can prop this boat up, remove it, separate it from the trailer, and have it sitting on stands nice and sturdy. So we're going to give it a shot, and we're going to see how it comes out. Now the first thing that I have to consider building these boat stands is how tall I want them to be. So we're going to go ahead and get underneath the boat and figure out exactly how tall we want them to be. Now my boat sits under an awning here, but this awning is not perfectly level. Number one, I did it myself and I am no mason, so these bricks are by no means perfect. But my yard also has a slope to it. So my back end is definitely gonna need to be higher than the bow. The stern is gonna have to be higher than the bow as far as the height of those stands go because it slopes this way. So we're gonna get under there, let's measure it up. So underneath the boat, you can see that we have the bunk on our trailer here. And my intention is to put a bunk on the stand, which serves as the bunk for the boat to sit on. And I'm probably going to make that about 2 feet long to distribute some of the weight of the boat. However, I won't be able to put the stand here because obviously this is here. So until it's removed from the boat, I couldn't put it here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the other side of the rib that this sits on right here. So you'll see here's the bunk and here's the hull rib, and I'm going to want to put the bunk to my stand here. So the height that we're going to be looking for is going to be, well, about 22 inches off the deck. So where the actual hull of the boat is 22 inches off the deck. But of course, we're going to want to go taller than that because we have to jack up the boat to get it off the existing bunk, off the trailer bunk. So in order for me to get it off this bunk and then sitting on the bunk that's going to be on the boat stand, we want to go a little higher. Now I'm not going to go too much higher because I don't want to be lifting this boat a tremendous amount. So I'm going to add maybe 1.5 inches to that so that when we jack up the trailer off the trailer bunk, we go up about 1.5 inches and then I can put the jack stand, the boat stand underneath there. So I'm going to take the 22 inches and I'm going to remeasure just so I have that right. No, I think 22 inches is fair. So it fluctuates a little bit because of course the boat is on an angle and again the ground goes up. So if I take 22 inches and I add 1.5 inches to that, that is to say that's how far we're going to jack the boat up off of the trailer. We're going to be looking at about 23.5 inches. So that's what we're going to shoot for on the height of our boat stands. So let's go. What we're going to use to construct our stands are 4x4 posts, and what I intend to do is alternate the direction of tiers on the boat stand itself, and I'm going to make the bottom tier a bit longer than the, I guess, the stand, if you will, so it takes the weight and it's able to distribute it more along the bottom. So when you consider a 4x4 post, as far as that measurement goes, for 23.5 inches, of course a 4x4 post isn't exactly 4x4, it's more like 3.5. In this case we're at exactly 3.5. So considering that the thickness of each level is going to be 3.5 inches, that's going to determine how many tiers that it actually needs to be to stand up there. So we're going to start off with our bottom skids, and I'm going to make those about 1.5 feet long. Now the rest of them are only going to be 10.5 inches long. And the reason I'm going to go with 10.5 is because I want to use 3 pieces of the 4x4. And if you take 3 pieces of the 4x4, 3.5, 3.5, 3.5, that's 10.5 inches. So if you do 10.5 inch cuts, then you can stagger them on each different tier, and we'll see what that looks like. So anyway, we're going to start off with the skids, and I'm going to make those at 18 inches for the bottom. So we'll go ahead and cut those. Alright, so there's our 2 skids. And again, we're making boat stands here. We're not building a precision instrument. So I'm not too worried about being absolutely dead on measurements. As long as we're in the ballpark, I'm happy with that. So now I'm going to measure out for the 10.5 inch sections on a different beam. And we'll go 10.5 here. And then 21. And then 31.5. Okay, that should give us enough to get started. Okay, so you can see the basic idea here I'm going to go with. The base is going to be longer with those skids. And then we'll take each tier and alternate the direction of them to give it strength. So I'm going to be using GRK fasteners here, these R4 multi-purpose screws, and I went with 5 5/8 inches one, so they go through one and a good ways into the other. And these are kind of expensive, but I didn't want to skimp. It's not going to cost us a whole lot to make these boat stands in the first place, and it might be overkill, but my boat's going to be sitting on it, you know what I mean? So we'll just line those up to be as equidistant as possible. Kind of eyeball it. All right, so now with 3 tiers assembled, we are 10.5 inches off the deck, 3.5 inches per. So I think I'm going to add a 4th level, which is going to then bring us to 14 inches. Okay, so 4 tiers tall, that'll bring us up to right around the 14 inches of the, what did we say, 23, I'm going to measure again, but 23 and a half that we need. All right, I'm going to go ahead and flip it over. And add some screws here. All right, so now we're 4 tiers tall. We have the bottom skids, and then we have 3 tiers of the 10.5-inch beams here. And so what I'm going to do is put uprights on top of this, and I cut a 2-foot piece of 2x4 to put on 2 uprights that we're going to put right here to serve as the bunk for the stand itself. But now, of course, I'm not going to leave it flat because the hull is angled. So we don't want the hull sitting, cockeyed on this. We want it sitting flush with it. So we'll go ahead and get the proper angle to cut these stands for. So let's go get the angle that we need to cut, and we'll see what that looks like. So obviously from this angle, you get a good view that this is clearly angled and it's not a flat surface. So we wouldn't want it sitting straight like this. We want to get it to go like this. So what I'm going to do to achieve that is, this is a flat surface up here. So I'm going to put the flat end of this up here and then go right up against here with my pencil and make a line. And so now you can see where that line is, and you can see that there's an obvious angle. It's not a steep angle. It's probably about 5 degrees or so, maybe a little more. And we'll bring it over to the miter saw, and we'll get the angle, and we'll cut that, and we'll make the uprights for the stands. So I've got that piece with the line on it here, and we'll go ahead and adjust our miter saw from 0 degrees, and we'll see what kind of angle we're looking at. And wow, that would appear to be right at a 5-degree angle. That looks like it's going to be right at a 5-degree angle. So there you have it. So we'll take a new piece of wood and we'll cut a 5-degree angle on one end of it. And so you can see that is what a 5-degree angle looks like. So that should allow to put the 2x4 on that and then have the hull of the boat sit flush on that 2x4 rather than if you had a straight edge. So now we're going to make sure we get a good length on that. And we'll make sure we put our saw back to 0 so we don't make another angled cut. Alright, so there you have our upright. So now I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that. We'll go back to the 5-degree cut. Now I should just be able to draw a line here. So these are the same height. And get back to 0. Alright, so there we have our angled uprights. Alright, so we're going to make sure the angle is going the appropriate way. And we'll go ahead and secure these on here. Alright, so we'll toenail these uprights into the top tier here. Alright, I think we're going to be pretty good there. Alright, so we're looking pretty good. So the last thing to apply here will be this 2-foot length of 2x4, which will serve as the bunk for the stand. Now for the last thing, I am going to fix some carpeting on this so the hull doesn't sit right on the wood. Just a little extra protection for the hull itself. And so I found an old bath mat in the basement, which I hope my wife didn't want. and I cut 6-inch 2-foot length, 6-inch wide by 2-foot length sections of that, and we'll go ahead and staple that on. So there you have it. There's our first completed stern stand. We're going to have 2 stern stands and 2 bow stands. So when the boat is on stands, the weight is dispersed and distributed nicely, so it's not all in one location. And so I will duplicate this process for the other stern stand, and then I will measure, because the bow stands are going to be, I would think, quite a bit shorter than this, probably 1 whole tier shorter anyway, or we can make the uprights shorter to accommodate for it. And then when we're done with that, we'll be ready to go, and we'll have a set of 4 boat stands to put our bass boat on, so we can take that trailer out from underneath it. And as I see this right now, it's pretty sturdy, and I think we're going to be looking pretty good. I think I'm going to be pretty comfortable letting the boat sit on these stands. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the process until we have 4 boat stands. Well, folks, there you have it. It's a good thing we finished, because I ran out of screws and we're running out of daylight. So it took all afternoon, but I think we got it right. So what I went ahead and did was duplicated the process for that first stern stand we did, for the second stern stand. Then I went and measured the height, and you can see there's a significant height difference between the bow stands and the stern stands, just because of the shape of the boat and the slope of my awning pad here that it's going to be on. You may not have that significant difference based on the structure of your boat and the levelness of the land that you're going to put it on. Also, you'll notice that the angle of the bunks on the bow is quite sharper than the angle on the stern. If you remember, the angle on the stern was a 5-degree cut, so it fits nice and flush on the hull. Well, that gradually sharpens as you get to the front of the boat, on this boat in particular, and the cuts I had to make on the bow bunks were 25 degrees as opposed to 5 degrees. So on these uprights here, on the stern ones, it's a 5-degree cut, and on the bow ones, it's much steeper, much sharper. It's at 25 degrees, and so that's so it sits flush against the hull up at the bow. So all things considered, I think we did pretty good. They feel really, really solid. And then also, all things considered, when you consider the lumber, the screws, and hey, I found an old bath mat in the basement, I'm pretty sure that I spent less than $100 in materials, probably quite a bit less, to build these 4 stands as opposed to buying boat stands online. So, I mean, the proof will be in the pudding. We're going to find out when I put the boat on it. Okay, it's time to see if those boat stands we made work, and I've done a lot of work on the boat, got it ready to paint, and so now I'm going to get her up on the boat stands, and we'll see how those boat stands work out. Hopefully good. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is jack up the stern so we can get the stern off of the bunks of the trailer and put in our boat stands for them to sit on. And I'm going to jack it up, and I got a couple of wood blocks on there along the keel, and we're going to see how that works out. Okay, so we got the stern on the boat stands. We're going to go up to the bow. Okay, so we have the front stands in place, and we have the back stands in place, and the boat, as you can see, is off the bunks by about an inch, maybe an inch and a half. The first thing we have to do is move the trailer forward by this distance between the stand and the rear cross member, so we can then jack it up again and put the back stands on the other side of the cross member. Alright, so I just moved it up the first distance to the back cross member, so now I have to jack it up again, get those stands out, put them on the other side of the cross member. Alright, so should be able to slide that trailer without a struggle. Okay, go slow, 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 stop.
Slowly. Stop.
Okay, I'm pretty happy with that.
All right, stop. Oh no, keep going.
More?
A little smidge.
Okay, more towards me. You're still on the rib. Okay. There you go. There you go. What we're going to want to do is move those up a little bit. Yep, right there. Let me see. Okay, well, we got her done. Had a little bit of camera difficulty, so I apologize for that, but I had my lovely bride help me out, and we got her done. So we have the front stands, and I have a little safety stack of blocks under the keel in the front, and we have the back stands there. And it is it's super solid. I mean, super solid. So I'm very, very happy with that. I ran into a little bit of a glitch where my pad is a little bit higher by about an inch than the rocks here, and so the first time when the trailer jack wheel initially came off there, it changed the height of everything there, and it made the boat catch on to the bunks of the trailer, and I wasn't able to move it anymore. So what we did was we laid down a 2x4 and we rolled the trailer jack wheel on that, and that ended up being even just about with the pad, the stones that make up my pad. So we leveled that out, and once we were able to do that, we were able to, you know, roll the trailer out. And so as you can see, the trailer is rolled out, and the boat is on its stands, and it's very sturdy, and I'm very happy with it. And it would appear, barring any unforeseen disasters, that those stands work and they're pretty good. So little DIY project if you need to take your boat off the trailer. It was simple as far as what you had to do, but it was a little tedious and slow, and you know, I get a little nervous when heavy things are up on jacks over my head. So we took our time and got her done. That's what I'm talking about. Hey, I hope this video was a help to you if you need to build boat stands for yourself and you don't want to pay $8 billion to buy some and have them shipped to you. You want to make some out of 4x4 posts. These work awesome. I'm really happy with it. Hey, we'll see you next time on Chicken Thigh Fishing. Until then, stay fishing, my friends.